Warriors, struggle. They make mistakes. They make bad calls. They cry to the heavens sometimes or get knocked down. But what they don't do is quit. We find a way to keep moving forward, even if it's by inches at a time, because you are fulfilling a purpose.
Take prudent risks. It's okay to fail. Just learn from it.
If you believe in something bigger than yourself, then rock bottom has a trampoline.
Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's a skill you can develop, a mindset you can strengthen, and a way to approach life's toughest challenges. Today, we're breaking down what it means to cultivate a resilient mindset with lessons from some of the most inspiring voices we've had on the show. From redefining what it means to be a warrior to embracing obstacles, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you thrive under pressure. Let's start by shifting how we think about stress. Dr. Sudeep Bose, an ER physician and Iraq war veteran, shared why stress isn't inherently bad and how learning how to handle it can unlock greater resilience. Here's what he has to say.
Stress is nothing new. It's been around long before Homo sapiens. What's new is the sensation that we can't cope with it anymore. So we reach for that pill, that cigarette, that bottle of liquor, anything to numb out a world that's too loud and too overwhelming. And, what if there were a better way to do this? And I've thought about this a lot in my experiences. What if instead of trying to dampen the stress response and failing, because stress is a normal bodily reaction that helps human beings survive and thrive, we need stress. What if we actually shifted our mindset to not activate the stress response when we don't need it? And that's what I hope we can discuss today. We're in a world right now that our bodies physiologically, like as a physician, I realize our bodies aren't made for it. Whether you're referring to my experience in the emergency room or on the battlefield or in intense moments, it's what we're all going through. We've gotten to the point where there's just too much of everything, right? Dings, digital connections, notifications, mating choices, global terror, disaster. You turn on the news, it floods you. Political division. And this leads to yelling at that person you love, your heart racing, you're drowning in debt from your spending, you're not able to sleep, you have trauma, you have pain, you have looping thoughts, insecurity, you're gaining weight, and relationship struggles. So to answer your question, although, I was in the Army, I think that we all of us have an inner army that helps us fight stress and combat what our body is physiologically trying to do. I'm not going to flood you here with medical like hypothalamic pituitary axis and cortisol and norepinephrine and dopamine and your amygdala and DSM-5. We can wonk out on that, but kind of the greater point is let's keep this inner army strong. And that's physically, mentally, emotionally. So as a physician, there's no way I'm not going to tell you to not sleep properly. I just listened to one of your podcasts recently on someone who was talking about the importance of sleep. And that's very important. And exercise and nutrition, feeding the machine of our body, spending time with loved ones. But let's take it to the next level beyond that, because that's kind of cliche as a physician. So I'm the medical director for Odessa Fire Rescue. And our medical center hospital in Odessa, Texas, where I work as an emergency physician, we are a referral center and cover 38,000 square miles of land. It's the largest geographic coverage by any hospital system in the United States. It's the size of Maine, the whole state of Maine. For Odessa Fire Rescue, when we're called, I have to set up the protocols that they follow in the field as paramedics or when fire goes out. And when the alarm goes off, we don't focus on the alarm. We focus on the actual fire that's causing the alarm, right? So it's similar in our body, whether it's these hormones I mentioned earlier or something triggering that alarm. We often try to stifle that alarm, that bottle of liquor, that pill. So I think some of the methods that we can do that are better are just starting from the basics. Just breathe, right? when you're in this moment, in the heat of the moment, someone's heart stops in front of you, the grenade explodes in your world that is causing stress, and choppers land in your world that are bringing patients amputated at the brink of life and death, bleeding to death. Whatever those bleeders are for you, take a breath, breathe in, twice as long to breathe out. Don't catastrophize it. We tend to do that sometimes, making it worse than it is. And sleeping, exercising, building up before that, preparing in peacetime, sweating in peace so you don't bleed in war, prayer. And then the one I'm going to focus on as we talk about this is using each other as a resource, like brotherhood. And by brotherhood, it's that term we had in the military, you know, Danny. I mean brotherhood, I mean sisterhood, I mean humanhood, right? Like just using each other and choosing to connect.
Dr. Bose's insight reminds us that it's not about avoiding stress, but managing it in a way that helps us grow stronger. From stress management to mindset shifts, DJ Vanis offers a fresh perspective on what it means to be a warrior. It's not just about brute strength, it's about mental discipline, clarity, and balance. Let's hear his take on redefining the warrior spirit.
That's what keeps the warrior role inaccessible. The warrior role, is so often that Hollywood image. The sweaty, chiseled dude, and it's usually a dude, and, shooting bazookas and knocking down buildings. And we see that image so often. But when I wrote about it, and the way I share from the stage or from the platform is different than that image. I come at it from a tribal-centric viewpoint. And within our tribal communities, that warrior role has a different connotation to it. My tribe, we call a warrior Ogichi-da. And that term has very little to do with what we ever see on TV and in movies. It's somebody who, yes, at times would protect, would fight and sacrifice if needed, but they were also peacekeepers. They were also leaders. They were, at the end of the day, contributors. They were somebody who led by example, not perfect example, but they dedicated their lives to developing their creator-given talent and ability so they could be an asset to the tribe that they served. And whether today, native or not is irrelevant, that idea can apply to anybody because we all have a tribe to serve. That tribe might be our family, our community, our team, your state, whatever capacity you're fulfilling that in. We all have a tribe to serve. And the burning question that should be on our minds is, what am I doing today to develop myself and use my talents and abilities to impact somebody else in a positive way? So it's somebody at the end of the day that's dedicated their lives to service. But yeah, that whole idea of, warriors are, beyond fear, pain. They don't need any outside encouragement. They don't need help. All they need is the next worthy challenge. That's a bunch of baloney. Warriors get scared. Warriors are grinders. They get scared. They deal with pain. They deal with fear. But they do what they do because they know it's important and it's affecting and impacting other people in a positive way. That's always the goal, is to have that element of benevolence in what we're doing. Warriors, struggle. They make mistakes. They make bad calls. They cry to the heavens sometimes or get knocked down under, while everybody's standing there pointing at them. But what they don't do is quit. We find a way to keep moving forward, even if it's by inches at a time, because you are fulfilling a purpose. And our purpose is not, a warrior fights for something beyond their own personal welfare. They fight for something bigger than that. And they fight for more than people than just that one person. That's being a fighter. A fighter is somebody who uses their talent, ability, and energy to accomplish a goal that primarily benefits them. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. That's not a bad thing. That's the first step to any level of self-improvement in our life, whether it's losing weight, leaving a bad relationship. We have to be a fighter first. But then a warrior is elevating that up and using that time, energy, and talent to impact somebody else's life or many lives. That's what that warrior role is really about.
DJ's words remind us that true strength lies in resilience, adaptability, and the ability to keep moving forward. Building resilience doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. Travis Snyder reminds us of the importance of patience and perseverance when life feels overwhelming. Here's what he had to say.
For myself personally, when I came home, I got home in May of 2018, checked out a month later. That first year, I'd like to think that I was okay. I was just fine. And I understood, that it was time to move on to new things. And I was pretty, I wouldn't say anxious, but very excited to move on to something else and to move on to the next part of my life. But also there was a lot of questions as to what did that look like? Still trying to find a purpose and fulfill a purpose and serve my community and serve those around me, but also look out for my guys as well. And so there was some anxiety there and trying to figure out the next steps of my life. But I think the biggest thing that I was able to do for myself, and it wasn't easy, was trying to learn grace and patience. And I think for any person, veteran or civilian, it's a hard skill to learn how to have grace for yourself and patience for the process. This life is a journey, and we can't rush things that are not in our control. And so being able to accept that, whether it's been through listening to podcasts or especially from other veterans who served, because this was a long conflict. It was, almost 20 years that we were over there. So there's veterans of all ages and different generations that served over there. And so to tap into that community, but also share that information with other veterans, especially guys that served around my time, was a big benefit. And I think that in the years since, with advocating for mental health, that's also been kind of the same goal, is to make as many men and women aware of the resources that are available to them. Whether they deployed or didn't deploy, they serve stateside or overseas. No matter what your military career was, how long, how short, how brief, or what it entailed, veterans of all backgrounds are dealing with mental health challenges and whatnot. So to make them aware of the resources, to help them through and find healing and still find purpose and answers post-service is very important.
Travis's insights pair perfectly with Leah Mort's philosophy of embracing the suck. Leah shared how reframing hardship as an opportunity builds mental toughness. Here's Leah.
Life's not easy ever. It takes work. Even the positive things take work. Don't overwhelm yourself thinking everything's supposed to be wonderful, because it really isn't. Besides what we see on TV telling us everything's supposed to be, life is great if you have money and you look really good and, and all that kind of false positivity. It's not true. Life is muddy. It's dirty. You don't get through it unscathed. And so just in the Marine Corps, we used to say, embrace the suck, it's not going to be that way all the time, but just get into it, get dirty, and know you're going to come through it. And find other people to go through it with you, If you're doing like a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder or whatever, it's so much more fun to go through that with somebody else, you know what I mean? It's just, I went to air assault school, and the people I went through with, it's tough, but my gosh, we have a good time, because those are the best stories, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to sit down with a beer and say, the other day was so easy, and you just own it and make it a good story, you know what I mean? Because that's what you gotta take what you're given and do the best you can with it until you can do better. So you're gonna make it. Whatever you're going through, you can do it. Just dig deep and work your way through it, one little bit at a time. I don't know how else to do it.
Together, these lessons teach us that resilience is built in the trenches through patience, perseverance, and embracing the tough moments. Resilience often emerges strongest after hitting rock bottom. Charlinda Scales shared how she turned adversity into opportunity and rebuilt her life with determination. Here's her story.
When you're in the empty apartment, you can do two things. You can sit there, and I heard this quote that said, rock bottom has a basement. And I'm like, how depressing is that? There's no hope there. That's like when you're at the bottom, it's darkness, but it's not. Rock bottom is not a place you go and stay. Rock bottom is a moment that's supposed to tell you something. Maybe there's too much noise. Maybe there's too much chaos. Maybe, chaos in here, chaos around. And rock bottom is almost like that moment where you're just like, everything stop, okay? Just stop. And in that empty apartment, there was no sound. Unless I was talking to myself, no sound. I was able to think clearly without hearing any other thoughts, anyone talking at me. Another thing that happened during that moment, I got a call from an editor of the Military Spouse magazine, and she said, "Congratulations, you're going to make the cover of Military Spouse magazine." And I thought I misheard her. I prayed that I misheard her because I was probably a couple days in that apartment at that point. This was like in the really bad moment. And that's where the title of my book comes from, because in that rock bottom moment, she said, "This is bigger than you." And in the hardest part is when you're feeling the way you do and someone's saying that it's not about you. I was like, oh, that hurt me. This hurts so bad, because I'm like, I failed. I don't want to hear anything else other than the negativity right now. I need to feed off of that. And she's like, "I'm not here to give that to you. I'm here to uplift you and tell you that you have a purpose bigger than whatever you're dealing with right now, that there are women who are entrepreneurs. They are not just holding up signs at airports anymore, waiting. That's not their story as a military spouse. On top of that, military spouses are men now. I mean, they've been men for a long time, but we need to highlight the fact that there are men who are supportive of military women going out there and fighting in, OCONUS combat situations, and they're just as supportive as the women. And they're taking care of kids too. And they're not just sitting around twiddling their fingers. They are active members of the community, and they're having to adapt every base that they go to. We want to recognize these people, and we want them to be seen. And the way that you are seen is by providing them with an example of not the status quo. And I'm trying to tell you to put the Jack Daniels down and be the person. And I was like, oh my God. So, there's what the sender sends out, and there's what the receiver receives. And what I received was, if you believe in something bigger than yourself, then rock bottom has a trampoline. If you don't think that it's just you down there at rock bottom, that there are people that love you, there are people who are rooting for you, that you don't know are speaking your names in rooms that you're not sitting in. They believe in you bigger than the belief that you have in yourself. She's like, I need you to harness that. Truly, I feel like people are put in your life for a reason. And wisdom comes when you realize the powerful reason why they were there. There are people, I'm telling you, Danny, there are people who are going to come into your life, and as determined as you are to not fulfill your destiny, they are there to believe in you past your own belief in yourself. And you can catch up to them because they see the whole thing. They see the vision. You don't even see it yet. They see it.
For another incredible story of resilience, Ralph Galati reflects on his time as a Vietnam POW and the lessons he carried forward. Here's Ralph.
Well, I was shot down in February 72, and I got released March of 73. So it was about 14 months. And of course, we didn't know what was going on. And I was a short timer. I mean, you got to realize the longest held POW in the North, in Hanoi, was Everett Alvarez. He was there 8.5 years. So my 14 months was like a Lamaze breath compared to him. It was nothing. But in January of 73, after the B-52 bombings, things got a little bit better, and we thought, well, we didn't hear any noise, we didn't hear any bombing. The treatment got a little bit better, the food got a little better, we were let outside a little more often, and we thought, well, maybe things were improving, but we were suspect because everything was propaganda. So, but it wasn't until the very end when they gave you civilian clothes and took you on a bus to the airport that we realized that it might be true. And we saw a C-141, a big transport land. Wasn't shot at, had a big red cross on the tail, and we thought, this has the beginnings of being pretty decent. But we got repatriated, we saluted, we got our name announced, we walked across the tarmac, we got in the plane, we took off. It was 20 minutes later when we finally got what's called feet wet, when we got out over the ocean, that the pictures you see of people yelling and screaming. It took 20 minutes because we realized we still had the chance of being shot down. We were still suspect. So when it finally happened, it was invigorating. Let me tell you, freedom. There's these old quote: "Freedom has a taste," and it really does. When you lose 100% of it, literally everything you've ever known is taken from you, and you're begging for everything. To get that freedom back again is really remarkable.
What's one tool or tip that you would give to somebody in their career that's helped you?
I have several. Take prudent risks. It's okay to fail. Just learn from it. Embrace change, because that teaches you how to be adaptive, because the world does not stand still as much as you might want to. Take every opportunity you can to lead. Take charge of some things. And my biggest one is, when in doubt, a situation arises, take some kind of action. Don't do nothing. If you take action, odds are is that you will be successful. If you're not, you'll learn from your mistake. A mentor will help you. If you do nothing, you can't be helped. Okay, there's nothing to fix. So there's a few things, but it takes action on your part. You have to be a little bit overt and get yourself, find out what you're truly made of. That's the big deal.
These stories remind us that resilience isn't about avoiding rock bottom. It's about rising from it with a renewed sense of purpose. Resilience isn't a destination. It's a journey built on the choices we make every day. From reframing the stress to embracing the suck, the lessons we've shared today prove that resilience is within reach for all of us. If you're looking for a supportive community to walk this journey with you, join our virtual walking group on the Strava app. It's a space where you can log your daily mile, connect with like-minded people, and find encouragement when you need it most. Take a moment to reflect on how you can apply these tools in your life. And if this episode inspired you, share it with someone who might need it. Let's keep building stronger, more resilient communities together. And as always, you can catch the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast on Reach Across America Radio, available on platforms like iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app.